Hello, I'm Andrea Schrader from the Creative Dream Incubator, and this is my second video in my new series. It's a weekly series for dreamers where I'm pledging to show up and share the authentic reality of where I actually am with my dreams as a way of making space for everyone who wants to show up with me. I believe there's so much power and potential in sharing our real stories, even if it's just you sharing it with your journal. I'm feeling like the trend of positive thinking is getting a little out of control, and I believe very much that you can't positive think your way through the real process of transformation and growth. Right? And that we want to make space where we can be in that process. We want to grow into who we're really here to be, and that's the path to getting your dream. And so being willing to be present with whatever's happening for you on that path now, that's where the magic is. So that's what I'm wanting to make space for in these videos. And I shared in last week's video that I don't entirely know how to do this in an online public space like this, and yet it feels needed and I'm feeling called to do it. So I'm just kind of showing up and doing it. And I know that on some level it's already working. Like I can see the responses, the energy that's coming back from these is amazing. I'm so happy and grateful for each of you who is showing up here with me. And then on another level, it feels like I really have no clue what I'm doing here. I can't even entirely articulate it yet. And that's actually really exciting. And as I learn more about how I want to do this, what I'm doing may change, of course. Right now, my commitment is to show up here every week with a new video where I'm going to share something about my own story, what I'm learning, what's happening for me. So this week, I remembered something that I know and that I teach people, which I wanted to talk about, which is the path doesn't look like you think it's going to look. And that's something that we continually kind of screw ourselves up about when it comes to our dreams, that we have a dream, there's a thing we want to do, and we've never done it. We've never done anything like it. And yet, for some reason, we think we know how we're supposed to do it. So we have this idea in our mind of what the path should look like. And we're almost always wrong. We're almost always wrong, and yet it feels almost like a surprise every time to me when I realize I was wrong. So I have this project that I'm working on, kind of a long-term project. I'm making a whole series of Creative Dream Alchemy videos for the Library of Creative Dream Alchemy, a way of like gathering your magic and power and using it exactly how you need to use it in the moment, right? So I have started doing these, and this week I added 2 new ones that I was really happy about. I love what I'm doing with this work, and yet I've been really stuck this week, like really stuck. And in some way, like there's parts of the creative process where you just can't move forward in the outer world, right? There's inner work that needs to be done. There's like the dream work that needs to be done of really connecting with the essence of what you're doing, and like working out of alignment with the essence of what you want to create. And if you don't do that work, then you're working out of alignment with who you are today and not who you want to be as you do the thing. So there's all that like tricky stuff. Like bringing a creative vision to life is really about growing yourself while you're growing the project. And I want to always be working from like the most expanded version of you, for lack of better terms about that. So it's just like stretching me in all sorts of different ways, and I'm just moving so much slower than I had wanted to move, right? And so I'm really frustrated with myself for moving so slowly. I'm frustrated that I don't have more stuff in that library already. So my solution was I'm gonna like do it in larger batches. So I was gonna plan a whole bunch of them, record a whole bunch of them, and then do like the editing. And it's not just a video, like it's I usually have journaling sheets that go with them, so then I would create all that. So if I could batch, plan, and record a couple of them, then I could, at a slower pace, work through like editing and creating the play sheets that go with them. So that was my idea for, this is how I'm gonna get back on track, right? But it's me, like my smallest self, who thinks I'm off track, right? My, most truest self doesn't believe that I ever could be off track, right? That I'm just moving along the path in the way that I'm moving along the path, and that nothing is wrong. So just the idea I had that I need to speed this up kind of put me on the wrong track, and I couldn't for the life of me sit down and plan out a whole bunch of these videos. And every time I tried to, it just felt more and more stuck, and I ended up doing all sorts of other things and making no progress on this. So that's pretty frustrating. I brought that into my journaling practice to explore what's going on there, what am I doing? And in doing that, I actually somehow just made space for the solution to come in, like that shift in perspective, that like miracle work, right? And somehow suddenly I saw it. It was like, no, there's no need to rush. There's no need to do these big batches. There's no need to push myself. In fact, that pushing energy doesn't work for this work. I'm doing alchemy work. You can't be coming at it from that vibe. And suddenly I saw it. Oh, I need to do one at a time. I need to meditate on it, connect with the essence of the work I'm doing, and then just let it flow from there, right? So instead of planning a whole bunch of videos, I need to just sit down and get so connected to one video that I just record it, like the alchemy process. And then there it was. Suddenly I could just sit down and do the work. It's just a funny example of how often our initial ideas are wrong about what it is that we're supposed to do. And we need to really get into our feelings about what's happening, like be as present as you can. So I'm just feeling really grateful right now that I have established over the years this like solid practice of doing the dream work, starting with the dream work and then going into an inner work when as needed, and then allowing all of that to lead the outer work. And that means that when I get stuck like I was this week, I don't stay stuck that long, because the practice is a container and it's space for me to work it out. Okay, so the more regularly you are really meeting with your truth. It's funny, it's like we live in this world where everyone's being kind of fake all the time, right? And we're just kind of so focused on the outer stuff. And anytime you can just sink in a little deeper and come more into present with your inner world, you shift immediately. And the way you see things can shift immediately, not always, right? But if you can spend more time in that space of more reflection and connecting with the inner essence of what it is you want to be creating, also connecting just more with the inner essence of what's happening for you right now, that's where all of your power is, right? So we live in that outer focused place where our power isn't. So I'm just feeling really grateful for this, having this practice that brings me back into that, and starting my day with that every day, so that's where I'm kind of coming from. It doesn't stop me from getting stuck and making mistakes. I mean, this week was largely spent being stuck. But it helps me get through it. And I actually believe that being stuck so much this week is beneficial to the long-term process. Like, it shifted my approach and how I'm doing this work now. I feel like I'm going to do better work now, and that actually it's probably going to be easier, maybe even faster. Ironically, a lot of the time for me, when I'm trying to do things faster, everything slows down to a standstill. And when I'm more relaxed and allowing the process to be what it is, it actually becomes faster than I thought it would be. Time works really funny for me in that way. Then the other part that I was thinking of in terms of like I'm feeling really grateful for my practice and just showing up for it, and then thinking about how I have practices for the dream work and I have practices for inner work, and then when it comes to outer work, I shift. I become more like outcome focused. So when it comes to outer work, I stop focusing on what's happening here, and I look up there where I want to be. So goals and all that. And I'd like to try doing the outer work more as a practice. that's what's really coming to me. And I think that's also why I was so stuck this week, that sometimes when I'm stuck, it's because I need to slow down because there's some kind of shift in perspective. And again, that's like the miracle work. So I'm like using like the tools from my Project Miracle class really regularly to help me with that, right? So that those shifts come in when I need them. Because as I'm talking about looking at how I want to show up right now, and then not knowing how I want to show up. So that's what I was talking about in the video last week. What's coming to be now from being stuck and having time for my perspective to shift is that my approach needs to change. That looking at, I feel really great about how I'm doing my dream work. I feel really great about how I'm doing my inner work. And then it's the outer work where I'm not so sure. And it's like, well, why don't you try approaching that the way you approach everything else? So how can I create practices for the outer work? And that's a real shift in thinking and approach for me. But then I look more closely, it's like I'm already kind of doing it. Like these videos, my commitment is just to show up every week and share where I'm actually at. I don't have outcomes in mind. I don't know what these videos are going to be before I'm doing them. It's not like a class where I plan out, here are all the lessons, this is what I'm going to talk about. It is more about just being present. And so that is a practice. This is a practice. So what I'm doing here is showing up for my practice every week of showing up online. I don't have to know how, and I don't have to know what I'm doing, but I can show up anyway, right? That's what I do for my dream work. That's what I do for my inner work. So I'm really excited about what happens when this is what I do as my outer work. So I'm also looking at where else can I create some outer work practices, because again, it's a shift in thinking. It's very tricky territory to work with, right? Like it's there's nothing solid to grasp onto, so it's a matter of just staying in the process and trying to be patient with it and like showing up for it. Practice becomes really stable if you show up for it regularly over time. It becomes this container that supports you when things are hard. And that's like this beautiful thing that we create for ourselves. And I think that's what actually helps us build the sturdy path to our dreams. It creates like a container that's so strong it can support you through the process of transformation that you need to go through in order to become the version of you who can do the things that your dream needs you to do. So I'm finding this happening for me like in new ways all the time. So there's always more to grow. There's always more to learn. It's always exciting to me. So that's the question I'm with right now. Where can I create practices for my outer work? Of course, an obvious one is like the creative practice, like painters who paint every day. I'm a journaler who journals every day, right? That kind of thing. But I'm also looking at specifically in my business and with this question of how do I want to show up online? Where can I create some practices for myself where I'm going to just do that? So I have one with this, and we'll see where I'm going to go with it next. So that's a question that feels pretty specific to me in my own situation. Since last week, I asked you to think about the question about showing up more wholeheartedly and authentically for your dreams. This week, I would encourage you to think about the question, how do I create supports in my life to help me show up more authentically and wholeheartedly for my dream? So that's essentially what I'm doing here, because I'm finding it's coming down to this thing about creating practices for the outer work. But for you, it could come down to something entirely different. So how do you create supports that are going to help you show up more authentically and wholeheartedly for your dreams? I'd love to hear your thoughts.